something outside.
What is that?
This is Monster X Radio.
Good afternoon, Monster X Radio listeners. This is your host, Gunnar Monson, and with me today is my buddy Shane Hardcore Corson. We are pre-recording this episode for you because this next Sunday is Easter, and we're going to be off doing those Easter things with our families. With me today, as I mentioned, is my good friend Shane Corson. Shane, how are you today?
Doing great, Gunnar. Doing great. Enjoying this little bit of sunshine we have here in the Pacific Northwest. I'm sure you're getting a little bit of the sun yourself down in on the coast.
Actually, it's very dreary today, so we are. So it's not a problem. We're used to it, and at least it's not raining, so I'm excited about that. I've got that, so I got that going for me. But
all right. Well, we also have. I wanted to touch upon. We also have the Olympic Project expedition coming up here next month, and I'm really looking forward to that. I have an actual friend from overseas that has been actually helping the Bigfoot movement by data big time, and he's going to be coming over here joining us at the Olympic Project event. And I'm really looking forward to meeting this individual. I know you are, Gunnar. I won't release his name because he's kind of behind the scenes sort of guy.
Yeah, it's Mr. X.
Mr. X. Yeah, he's a bit of a mystery, but I've been collaborating with him for close to 2 years now. He's put together a tremendous amount of data and has done his homework on it, and it's pretty amazing. And now we're going to get to meet face to face up at the Olympic Project expedition. So it should be a pretty interesting time and event. But I'm really looking forward to this expedition as a whole because it's been a while since we've had one up at the Olympics that we've included some of the general public.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. But when you told me that Mr. X was coming, I was stoked to meet him and pick his brain. And like you said, he's coming quite a ways to attend the Olympic public expedition. But I'm imagining that you had something to do with that.
Well, he will be staying with me. It is quite a trip. He will be staying with me for the time being, and then driving up to the Olympics, where we're going to do some collaboration with some of the other guys and sit down because like I said, this guy's been doing a lot of work and on the subject, and it's really accumulated to a point now where it's time to do something about it.
Yeah, I'm basically a Bigfoot data nerd, and I know Tom Baker with the Olympic Project has done a lot of data plotting and stuff, and he did a presentation. I've seen a couple of his presentations, and I don't know, I'm just kind of frothing at the mouth. It's cool to be able to look at, it's one thing to see individual reports and such. It's completely different to take all that information and put it in a form where you can actually look at it and see patterns start to emerge, and I definitely see that in what Tom has put out there, and Mr. X his data kind of goes right into that. I mean, that's when you start to accumulate stuff and turn it into data points, it's interesting because one of the big goals of the Olympic project is to create predictability, is working on predictability and looking for patterns, and that's something that fascinates me. So.
Yeah, indeed, and we are also going to have quite a few special guests at this event. It's really going to be a really interesting time together with a lot of interesting people. I'm looking forward to meeting some of the other, people from all walks of life joining these events, and some are long-time researchers, some are enthusiasts, and so it's going to be a good chance to just talk with these individuals. I always take something away from these times out at these public expeditions, and you never know. We do a lot of hiking. We do a lot of different things, so you just never know what can happen up at the Olympics.
Well, and there has been interesting stories that come out of that area. In fact, that's why that became the focal point of the Olympic project. So it has quite a history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. We've actually had some, when Adam Davis, when we talked this on the show, when Adam Davis came up, we had some peculiar events take place there, some interesting stuff, and that wasn't the only time. Of course, you don't go to these expeditions to have an encounter because, the likelihood is it's pretty low. But you never know. We have found, on these expeditions, we have found impressions. We've had some interesting vocals. So there have been some tidbits of interest. But really go to these expeditions to really collaborate. Derek Randolph and James Millen put on a fantastic job at survival skills, survival, teaching wilderness skills for those that, are not really familiar with being out in the woods, and especially what it takes to actually do effective research. And that's a key thing when it comes to this research. A lot of people just head out in the woods and have a stick and bang a tree, and that's about it. And, you're really not doing yourself any justice if you have not done your homework on the area that you're working in. If your pack does not have any sort of survival things in it, like water, a compass, blanket. One of the things they teach is double up on everything you have in your pack. Whether it's if you have one knife, bring two knives. If you have one fire starter, bring two fire starters. And so, if you're not prepared to be out there, you're not going to do effective research. So.
No, and I have been to 2 or 3 of the public expeditions for the Olympic project, and it's always a good time, and folks have a great time. So, and this one sold out quick. A couple of openings came up recently, and then they filled up just in a snap. So. If you ever see that the Olympic project is having an expedition and you want to attend, don't waste any time getting a hold of them and securing your spot, because they go fast. So I did want to remind our Monster X listeners that we have a brand new website at www.monsterxradio.com. We will be having lots of information that isn't available anywhere but on the website, and we'll be doing drawings and stuff for the folks that go there and register. That's www.monsterxradio.com. So check it out. We won't twist your arm to go become a member, but we're going to have a lot of fun over there. So our guest today is a gentleman that had an unusual encounter with what he believes to have been a Bigfoot. And I'm always intrigued by folks that have had those experiences. As I said, I have not had the confirmation experience, which I consider seeing one with my own eyes. But I'm excited to talk to our guest today, Mr. Jeff Beaudoin. Hey, Jeff, welcome to Monster X Radio.
Hey, thanks. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Pretty good.
Good. With me is Shane Corson.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
Doing well. That was your cue, Shane. So, Jeff, tell us a little bit about your background and stuff. What prior to becoming a Bigfoot enthusiast?
Well, to be honest with you, I've never been a Bigfoot enthusiast. I've always believed it's possible, and I watch TV shows, but I personally run a paranormal group in Maine, Paranormal in Maine. So investigative in that sense, I've been around the block quite a bit, but a buddy of mine owns several acres up north of Maine, and we go up there. He's got a camper. We go up there, and we do some plinking with guns and stuff and have fun. And I went up with my cousin, and you want me to give you the story? Or
let's get into it. What happened?
Okay, well, first we got up there. It was daylight, and there were some other people on the bottom of the mountain riding on four-wheelers and stuff. And so we were up top, and we, like I said, we did a bunch of plinking. We shot a bunch of bullets and stuff and enjoying ourselves. And the property is on top of a mountain overlooking a lake, and my buddy's got a camper up there, if you want to call it that. It's kind of a wreck, but it's there. And beyond that is a large path that goes through the woods. And we had been told that one of the neighbors down at the bottom of the hill, he'd been setting traps for coyote. They had a problem with him taking out the deer up there. So I decided to do a little scouting around there. I've been up there several times, but I'd never gone as into the thick woods as I did this day. And everything, my cousin, I'll get to what he saw. I physically didn't see a Bigfoot, but everything I'm about to tell you, all the hallmarks, you can make your own mind up. But so we're walking up this path, and we come across in different areas, I'd say about 3 different trees that were right around 8 inches thick, and they were knocked over, which could be weather or whatever. I didn't think much about that, except for the fact that they also were broken 2 or 3 times on the ground. So that kind of got me thinking, just because of the TV shows and all that. So we leave the area, and we're doing some more shooting and stuff. And just before the sun started getting ready to go down, my cousin kind of freaked out, ran over and grabbed an axe off the table. And I'm like, what? And there's a spruce tree about 10 feet tall, and next to it is another one about 4 or 5 feet taller than that. According to him, he had seen what looked like a face, a hairy face, above that 10-foot spruce, and it just went down real slow. But the odd thing is that he said it was green, not brown like you'd see on TV or whatever. So he grabs that, and he's like, you need to go check it out. And I had a fully loaded 9mm in my hand, and I was still scared because if it was that big, all I'm going to do is make it angry. But so I come around the corner, and I didn't see anything, but he said that he had heard some loud thuds like it was running away from me. So we thought that was kind of weird. We just chalked it up as whatever. So when we were shooting one of my guns, I decided to keep 2 magazines so that we could shoot it at night, and I could get a couple pictures of the flare at night. Well, now at this point, just as the sun goes down, we start hearing heavy footprints. I don't know if you're familiar with Maine. It's a lot like out west. You get really large moose. Mm-hmm. And whatever this was heavier than moose. You could hear it really clumping through the woods. And it was happening about where that trail was that we had taken a look at. We could hear it in front of there, but then we heard it to the left of us. We heard it to the right of us. And this is what made me nervous, is that even though I didn't see it, whatever it was was extremely large and extremely fast. And before I carry on the story, I'll let you know that the property owner, Bob, he, as well as 3 or 4 other mutual friends, have told me that they've seen Bigfoot up there on several occasions. And again, I always just, yeah, whatever, you know, you could be right, whatever, but I haven't seen one, so whatever. But so whatever it was really large, it was really fast, and now I'm starting to get nervous. Again, I've done hundreds of paranormal investigations, and all it does is get me excited. Things don't scare me, but this did. I was scared. So then I said, all right, I still got those 2 magazines. And I'm still thinking in my head, trying to rationalize that this is a native Maine animal, bear, moose, whatever. So I unload 2 magazines, 32 rounds in the ground to try to scare off whatever it is. Right after I did that, the noises got louder, closer, and faster, and more. It was more than one. So then I'm thinking the old cliche, the tree knocking. I pick up a stick and whack the tree 2 or 3 times, and a few seconds later, we actually got an answer behind that tree line, which actually made me laugh because I'm thinking this can't be real, you know. This can't be that cliche. So then at this point, the batteries, we had about 3 flashlights, and the batteries all died. So we had the car facing that trail, and we had lights on. We could hear it. We're looking at each other with our jaws dropped, our eyes bugging out like, oh, my God. Well, he shuts the lights off for a second, and we're probably about 40 yards from that tree line. Shuts the light off, and you can hear it, whatever it is, it was only one at this point, walking towards us, towards the car. And, again, you could feel it on the ground. So he turns lights back on, and there was nothing there. Waited a few seconds, turns lights off, and started getting closer. And I looked at him. I'm like, dude, turn the lights on. Turn them on. And he's like, I want it to get closer. And it sounded like it was right on us. It sounded like it was right in front of us. He turns the lights back on, and there's nothing there. You can't see anything on the ground, nothing. And on top of that, this is a very isolated area. His property is 120 acres. We also, at some point in that night, we heard a woman singing and we heard drumming. And also at one point, we heard a four-wheeler rev up right behind us, but for a split second, we didn't hear it coming up the trail or leaving. So we went and took a look to see if we could find a four-wheeler. There was nothing there. So it was more than just the sounds went on. There was all kinds of crazy stuff went on that night. And at that point, after the headlights 3 or 4 times, again, I had a firearm in my hand, and my hand was shaking. And I finally looked at my cousin and I said, the hell with this. I'm never coming up and staying the night in the camper here again. And that was it. We split. We were out of there.
That's interesting. I mean, I don't hear a lot of stories that are that bizarre in terms of having other things, you know, to tie into what could be a Bigfoot encounter. So tell it. You said that your cousin saw something. What can you describe? What he described to you?
He described what would be. He said it looked like what you would interpret as a Bigfoot, I guess. It had a real hairy face, real hairy head, but it was green. It was kind of like the same color as the trees. And the reason I went around to look is to see if there was a branch hanging over or anything like that. There wasn't. And he swears up and down. He says, I know it wasn't a branch, dude. I could see the face looking at me. And he just shrunk down, straight down behind it.
Yeah, that's that'd be the first time that I've heard of a green face, but who knows what, you know, what would cause that to be the case? If it's Bigfoot and it, you know, is using some kind of you know, camouflage or something, maybe they put stuff on their face on occasion to blend in more. I don't know. That's one of the questions: is how intelligent. You know, I'm of the belief that we're dealing with a terrestrial, one-dimensional animal. You know, but the question always comes up. It's just they elude us, and they're they seem to own their environment. So just how smart are they? What are they? What kind of, are they closer to people? Are they apes? Are they, a relic hominid? Are they a species that just is not showing up in the fossil records? So we really, the thing is, the book's wide open in terms of we don't know what they are, other than we know that people describe seeing the same thing, within certain parameters, and that's,
Well, another thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Jeff. No, go ahead.
Well, one point in the night, we also saw like a kind of a small, I'd say about a baseball-sized red light in the thick of the woods. It was there for about 5 seconds or so, and it was gone. Again, there's only one way in, one way out of that place. It's so thick and dense and isolated. And Bob, the owner, mentioned once, he's told me several stories of seeing him up there. He's seen one with a juvenile that he chased with a friend of his. Another friend was outside going to the bathroom. He broke the screen door to the camper, running in with his pants down, swearing that he saw one. And so Bob's seen it a few times, but he's with a different friend at a different night. And his friend's pointing out, saying, "Look, he's right there. Can you see him? Can you see him?" And Bob says, "No, I can't see him." He's like, "He's right there." And then all of a sudden, Bob saw a flash light, and then his friend said that he's gone.
It's interesting, too. I was going to ask you, since some of the, adjacent neighbors to this piece of property, Bob and whatnot, since they've seen, what they would call Sasquatch, do they describe any of, like this, what was their description like? Did they see, like a green figure at all? Were they more atypical of what a Sasquatch looks like?
Yeah, Bob said definitely atypical. He described it just like, the typical what you would see on TV or whatnot. He said he's seen them up in trees. The juvenile was up in a tree. He's had, I think, probably 3 or 4 encounters up there. But he's not afraid. He'll stay in the camper. He says if they wanted to bother you, they'd bother you, but I just learned to live with it. I don't, but I don't take that for granted. I just
it's interesting to me because of your paranormal background, and you say that none of that stuff, doing that kind of investigation does not freak you out, but this encounter did.
Well, I think it's
why do you think that is?
I think it's paranormal. You don't. You never heard of a ghost attacking some? Well, you might hear it on TV or whatever. I've never.
Yeah.
I've never experienced it, but with this, we couldn't see it, but we could physically feel it on the ground. I knew it was there, and it was capable, if wanted to hurt us.
And did you, when you say you felt it on the ground, did you feel like the vibrations through the ground of it walking?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard that description before. Yeah.
I mean, I've been camping in the woods of Maine for my whole life. I'm 46, and I've had moose come through the site and everything, and I'm familiar with that experience. The feeling on the ground when it's a real large animal. But this one was just way too fast and elusive to be a moose.
Right. Well, I tend to believe that there's, think that there's some kind of logical explanation for the coloration, of what your cousin saw. I mean, it's an interesting encounter. And how long were you guys up there what was the duration of your experience?
I would say it started right around mid-afternoon, around 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and when we split, it was maybe an hour after sundown, so probably right around 7, 8 o'clock. Well, no, I think it was closer to 9 o'clock when we left.
Interesting.
You mentioned, he mentioned earlier, you mentioned earlier the gunshots, how you fired them into the ground, and things seemed to get pick up a little bit in kind of freaking out, like it didn't, whatever this was not afraid of the gunshots, and I thought that was interesting because a lot of people do report, a lot of reports come through and have been reported of Sasquatch not being afraid of gunshots, of actually approaching the sound of gunshots, and I often wonder I often think of maybe for two reasons. One, the gunshot may sound like a wood knock or a tree knock, and two, I would assume, if Sasquatch has been around hunters, and I assume a lot of them have, that they know that a shot can mean a kill, and a kill can mean food. But of course, I do believe that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that this thing is probably a lot closer than it was probably not going to mistake this for a gun or a wood knock. It was probably close enough that it maybe just antagonized it. I don't know.
Yeah, and again, the activity increased. We heard a lot more movement and noise after that. It was like it definitely attracted us. So.
Well, it's interesting. Do you think there was? Go ahead, Jeff. More than one?
Not only was it not scared, but the thing that really, really freaked me out, that made me scared, was when we were playing with the headlights. I know 100% for a fact it got within 6 feet of us, and then when we turned the lights on, there was nothing there. That just blew my mind. That we should have seen something. We could feel it, we could hear it right in front of us, and it was gone.
Yeah, I don't have an explanation of that, except I know that our brains, when we're freaking out, will play all kinds of tricks. And what you're hearing at distance. I mean, I have had experience where something was making a very weird percussion sound and felt like it was. I felt like it was following us, and it always felt like it was pretty close. I never saw anything. But I don't know what it was, but that's a strange encounter. I don't think the Bigfoot is invisible or has the ability to phase in and phase out. That would just there's a lot of science that would not support that kind of creature. I mean, the energy that it would take to, but who knows? I mean.
And it wasn't just walking up to us. It was a charging motion. I wouldn't say full speed, but it wasn't walking. It was definitely at least jogging towards us.
Yeah. I've always heard that one of the interesting statements that I've heard is when things are going on in the woods that a mouse sounds like a possum. Any animal. Possum sounds like a deer, because everything's amplified because we're amped up, and I've had that kind of experience. So where you think, oh, that sound, but it may not have been. I mean, you believe that it was really close to you. So I wasn't there, so I got nothing for why there would be nothing. When you turn the lights on and there's nothing there. But
I told you it'd be something that you haven't heard.
Yeah.
And also, after all this happened, I did a little research, and right across the lake is another large mountain. And back in the 50s and 60s, there were 3 reportings of Bigfoots over there on the other side of the lake.
Well, it sounds like there's a history in the area of, and if you described hearing more than one creature moving around at some point during your encounter, right?
Yeah, we'd hear it in front of us. We'd look at each other, then we'd hear it directly to the right of us. Then we'd hear it directly to the left of us. And again, after the gunshots went off, that's when we started hearing more to the left and right as well.
And I mean, and you said that there's a history of activity in that area. So, and having seen juveniles, I could see that being that you got in there when there was some family activity. There's more, there's more than one report of people coming up on a Bigfoot, and they're either being juveniles in the area and they act differently. They act defensively, like you would expect that a parent would of its offspring. You don't want to come up on a mother bear when she's around her cubs. And I'm pretty sure, and other animals that that are that we know are proven to exist, deer and elk, are skittish of human beings. So I'm pretty sure that an animal that is that seems to be as intelligent as these creatures are, know to be aloof of humans. So, and it's interesting that Shane was talking about them not being concerned necessarily about gunshots. So, that I was thinking about Todd Neese's encounter. Are you familiar with that, Jeff? He's a National Guard guy. Yeah, Jeff.
No.
Several years ago, Todd was part of a National Guard unit that was actually doing explosive stuff out in the woods. And as he was driving away, they saw he and a couple other guys saw 3 Bigfoot come into where they had been and watched them leave. So, and I've been in the woods. In fact, the research area that we have here in Oregon, the first time I went up there, I heard all kinds of ATVs and people go up there and shoot, and I thought there was no way that there would be any reason that Bigfoot would be in that area. And that very first night, when it quieted down, as we had some really weird stuff happen. I can't say with any certainty that it was Bigfoot because I didn't see it, but it was something that I can't explain by any known animals. So.
Yeah, everything about it just scared me.
And
I've jumped bear in the woods by accident. There's a place, Rangeley, Maine, that if you go camping there for a night, you're guaranteed to see a few moose and a couple bear. But but they, even with a bear, except like you said, maybe if you jumped a mother and her cub, a gunshot wouldn't scare away. But any other time, a bear would be so far from you before you even knew it was there.
Yeah, that behavior you describe and comes up in other people's encounters is that's consistent. There's a lot of times that they do not, their behavior does not mimic known animals. That you shoot off a weapon. In most cases, any other known animal is going to scatter.
Yeah.
They don't want any part of that. But like Shane was saying, there's more than yours is not the only encounter where gunshots do not seem to deter them.
Right.
Yeah,
did you guys find any impressions around the area or anything like that? I don't know what the soil was like. A lot of times you can't find any impressions. I'm just curious if you guys found any impressions around the area or any tracks.
To be honest with you, by the time the stuff started happening, from that second on, I wanted to get out of Dodge. I did.
Yeah.
I was not going looking for evidence.
And you're not a Bigfoot researcher in any way, shape, or form. You were not you're not in that place looking for Bigfoot. You'd heard stories that they're like you kind of. You were open to the possibility that they may exist, but you were not. They could, but you weren't convinced that they did.
I'd have to be a pretty big hypocrite to say they don't exist when people tell me, well, I don't believe in ghosts, and I tell them, well, I can tell you straight up, I've seen proof. I know for a fact they're there. So for me to say there's no such thing as Bigfoot, I'd have to be kind of a hypocrite on that. I'm open to anything. Just because I haven't seen it doesn't mean it doesn't exist for sure.
Yeah.
And another note, the camper. Sorry. The camper on the front corner of it, I'd say about 3 times the size of a basketball is a big dent right on the frame coming down in. And for all this time, I figured it was snow. It was just something that toppled it in. But after this night, I'm looking at that, and I'm thinking it was right on the corner where there's a metal frame, and the camper is only, I'd say where it's dented in is about maybe 8 feet high. And now after that, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I wonder if something got mad, or because it looks like something came down and crushed that corner.
Yeah, that's another interesting point because I can't tell you how many times from eyewitness encounters, but mostly just scenarios where a Sasquatch has been seen in the area and whatnot. And someone said that some things come by and slap, or occasionally comes by and slaps the side of their house, their building, their shed, their motorhome, their trailer, that I know even a few members of the Alignment Project that we work with that have claimed to have had this sort of scenario in some of these areas where something sounds like something comes up and slaps the building really hard and takes off running. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if something came up and slapped this trailer. And then, of course,
but that'd be quite a slap.
Could probably easily, quite easily. I mean, you're talking about something considerably stronger and bigger that it may not know its own strength sometimes and but of course, like you said, I guess the possibility of snow is probably better, but you just never know. It's pretty interesting.
Or tree fall or something,
Yeah,
you never know, right? That's,
yeah. In the area. Jeff, you mentioned earlier something else about this particular encounter was that you guys had heard what sounded like a woman singing and the drumming. You talk about that a little bit too, a little bit more.
Yeah, that's really all it was. It was really faint. It was a woman, definitely a woman's voice, and kind of like an old drum, just a boom, boom. And the direction it was coming from, you would have to, because it's, with friends, it's come up, well, maybe somebody came onto the property that wasn't supposed to be there and they're camping or something, but you would have to, I don't see anybody really wanting to step over sticks and trees, climbing up a mile on the side of a ridge where there's no openings or clearings to camp. It just wouldn't make any sense to me. So there's that, then the four-wheeler thing. But Bob, that owns the property, he's definitely into the Bigfoot thing. He's seen it a few times, but he's got that same theory that other people do. I know this disagrees with your theory. You're more of it's an animal thing, but he believes that property, that circle of clearing, is some type of portal or something. And it kind of makes sense to me where we had so many different experiences that night. It wasn't just knocking on a tree. We heard the woman in the four-wheeler and whatnot. So the four-wheeler I chalked up was that could have been, just a residual haunting or anything like that, just some kind of tape recorder type thing. The music, same thing maybe, who knows. But it's almost like it was haunted, but it also had the whole Bigfoot thing going on. It was really, really strange.
That sounds, it sounds really odd, really strange. It's not the first time I've heard of the drumming being associated with Sasquatch, nor actually the woman's voice or the woman singing. Me personally, don't necessarily find that to be I don't know, I'm not there, I can't see it, but I could see a natural explanation for that in a lot of ways, because we do a lot of recording ourselves, and we've recorded like a drumming noise, and we've come to find out that
percussion.
percussion,
there's some kind of percussion-y, I would describe it as,
you usually look at a lot of known animals that do that, but that's just one of those things where I don't necessarily associate with it being paranormal, but until I see it, of course. But it has been recorded before in association with possible Sasquatch activity. So it's one of those interesting things you brought up that it's not, and once again, not the first time I've heard it. So there definitely does seem to be some sort of connection. And Gunnar, you mentioned the percussive sounds. Yeah, that's very, very true.
Yeah, the whole night was just really, really odd. Again, I don't have any explanation for any of it. It was the strangest, most shocking, scary night I've ever experienced.
Which, it's, to me, that's something that, somebody who chases ghosts that investigates other phenomena finds that kind of that freaky, and the most intimidating thing, of course, is having some large entity, and I think you're talking about a Bigfoot. The behavior sounds very, matches up pretty well with Bigfoot. What your cousin saw sounds like a Bigfoot. I don't have it's unusual that coloring would be green, but, there's different shades of green. What's what's green? What was it doing that it could have got green on its face? So, yeah, that's the other stuff. I don't know. I mean, that's like you said, weird stuff. I've heard other, talked to other people that have reported other weird phenomenon in association with Bigfoot sighting. I have people tell me that they see UFOs and Bigfoot. I don't think Bigfoot's coming from outer space. I don't. But that's what some people report, that kind of stuff. Stuff that is more fantastic. It's an interesting anecdote, and it's just we're never going to prove a mystery with another mystery. And but like I said, I don't discount your experience. You had something happen, whatever it was. I'm pretty sure nobody can explain. It could be that there's some logical explanation. Like I said, I've heard the percussion sound. In fact, one of my weirdest experiences and it's in our research area where we've had some actual sightings. I have not personally, but some of our group members have had visual encounters. But was being up off a trail and starting to hear a percussive sound that to me sounded a lot like the bass turned up on a stereo in a car, and I kind of put it off to that at some point because there's roads up there. Some kids driving around with the bass turned up on their car, but and that was the time that my buddy and I were headed back. We were actually putting out audio parabolic dish with a recorder on it, and we came back to the trail, and I said, well, let's turn our lights off for a minute and see what happens. And the sound was closer. And this particular friend of mine is not really, I've never really seen him be nervous in the woods. He's very much of an outdoorsman. And we turn our lights back on. And he's got his hand on his gun. He's like, we need to get out of here. And that percussive sound actually followed us back down the trail. He actually heard it. This particular trail splits, and he was hearing it on the other part of the trail as well. And we actually recorded it and have recorded it on other occasions. And it's just weird, and it has a weird signature when you look on it, in like on Sonic Visualizer. It has a weird signature. So it's just one of those weird things. Was a Bigfoot? I can't say that because I'm walking in the dark and I hear a weird sound. So, but your encounter with where somebody sees something in those aggressive, charging kind of behaviors, in an area that has the context of other people having seen Bigfoot, is interesting. I mean, that's the other stuff is just I don't know. It's just hard to explain.
Yeah.
So prior to go ahead, Jeff.
First thing when I got back out that night, the property owner, my buddy, he lives part-time in the Philippines, and it was probably 9 a.m. there. And the first thing I did was send him a message on Facebook and say, all that crap I ever gave you about Bigfoot, I take back every word of it.
So prior to this experience, how many times had you been to this area?
Oh, several. I actually own 10 acres on it. I'd say over the past few years, a dozen times.
So, and you'd never had anything remotely like this happen in the past?
Nothing whatsoever. It would have been the last time I was up there.
And have you been back to the area since?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, okay.
I've got, you might have heard of Audrey and Deb Hewins.
Doesn't ring a bell. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. They run a thing called Starborn Support. They're ufologists, and if one of them's dating Travis who was the one that was abducted from that movie Fire in the Sky.
Oh yeah. Travis
okay. And a friend of mine, Steve, was one of the guys in the truck. I know all those guys. And I tried to round some of them up, along with my cousin and myself and my partner in the paranormal research, and pretty much nobody wants to go.
Well, I don't blame Travis for at all for never wanting having any other kind of weird experience at all. Yeah.
He wasn't one of the ones that I asked, but I asked Audrey.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That movie where he was, the representation of his encounter. One of the freakiest scenes in a movie I've ever seen is the needle moving towards his eye. They're like, oh man, that is not okay.
Yeah, I'm all set with that.
Yeah, if I find out Bigfoot does that, I'm out too. I'm done.
Yeah.
Turn around syringe.
Well, I will go up. We're actually going up once the snow is gone. We're going to start building some shelters up there and whatnot. But I don't know if it's a gut feeling or the fact that we stopped the car after a certain point, got out and stood there, and it was an easy feeling. But it seems to me that any activity or anything that's going on there stays in this, I'd say, quarter-mile open area. And where the gravel road stops and becomes path to that area is where we got out, and it seemed calm and everything. And that's where my property is, and for some reason I feel okay there. But I told Bob, I said, I'll help you with your property and whatnot during the day, but when it comes time to crash, to call it a night, I am getting off this section of property.
Yeah, well, once again, I don't blame you, but you had been on, so this piece of property, it sounds like it's got a rich history in sightings and whatnot. But you being up there a few times, never having any activity. Once again, that sounds really normal to me. You just get that time when something is coming through or passing through that particular little area. But you seem to think that it's kind of the activity is just on that one area, basically. Rather than coming down onto your property.
Yeah, I don't have any explanation for it other than just a gut feeling.
Yeah.
And it didn't follow us. Once we got off that path and onto the gravel road, we didn't hear anything. So I don't know if, you could present any theory to it, but maybe they just feel that's their footprint, that's their part, but and before that night, I don't know if I've even seen so much as a squirrel up in those woods. I've never seen an animal up there. I've seen scat. I know there's deer up there, there's moose up there, there's coyote, but I personally have never even seen one up there. I've never seen any wildlife up there other than us.
Yeah. Yeah, and I imagine, I'm curious as to the elevation, but I would imagine there's probably some water sources nearby, huh?
Yeah, there's a river right below that part of the property, and then at the bottom of the mountain there's a lake, a big lake.
Mm-hmm. So plenty of water, and it sounds like that, even with the lack of animals, you're still seeing animals or evidence of animals there. And we are talking about a mountain, and that's, do you have any idea what the elevation is roughly around that area? Or?
Oh, jeez. I don't, but I can tell you that a pretty good incline up the gravel road, it takes you about 10, 15 minutes to drive to the top.
Oh, okay. That's substantial. That is substantial. And you got probably you say it's pretty dense up there. You're saying it's very thick and hard to get into, and in that one area we had your encounter, one way in and one way out.
Yeah, there's one gravel road that's gated. Because I would say there's half a dozen residents at the bottom. Again, Bob owns 120 acres. He owns pretty much the top of the whole thing. But that gravel road goes up, and then at one certain point, the gravel road stops because everybody chips in on the taxes for the road and whatnot. So then it becomes a path, and path isn't very far. It takes you about 5 minutes to go down it in a car, but that's because it's all rutted and, it's just not a good path. Mm-hmm. But it's not very far from the camp.
Yeah. at the beginning, Jeff, before you really got into your encounter, your story, you had mentioned something that obviously is not super impressive to you, but you did mention, and that was some sticks you came across, some sort of, I don't know if they were on the ground or on a tree. You talk a little bit about what you just came across as far as these sticks that, kind of piqued your interest.
Yeah, well, the reason they piqued my interest is there's a few of them, and the thickness of them, we do get some severe weather in Maine, so he could have knocked it over. But the thing that struck me as odd is that, number one, all 2 or 3 that we saw, they were green wood. They weren't rotted. And the sections that were laying on the ground were broken 2 or 3 more times, aside from being broken off. And I've never really seen a hurricane or anything break the trees when they're on the ground. So I thought that was odd.
Yeah, so they're just laying in a line, but broken in different places.
Correct.
Yeah,
yep.
That is odd.
So,
I've heard a lot. Go ahead, Shane.
And we have seen other trees at about 6 to 8 feet broken in the trail going in, but I always just attributed it to cars going in and out or whatnot. But on the way out, I was paying attention. And I'm like, geez, there's actually quite a few down this path that have snapped right around the 6-8 foot height. But that could be anything.
Right. How much traffic does this area get as far as outsiders or hunters or other people? I mean, is it frequently visited? Do people go up there and chop wood? What's going on in this area?
Well, like I said, there's probably half a dozen, maybe a couple less residents at the bottom of the mountain. Once you get up to his property, there's, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 friends go up there a year.
So yeah, not a like a highway for human traffic,
No, there's at the bottom of the mountain is a main route that goes from Skowhegan, Maine, and connects and goes all the way up to Quebec. But that being said, you might see in a 10-mile stretch driving, you might see 3 more cars other than yourself driving.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I've never come across, because we don't have them where I'm at. I live in Washington. There are moose, some moose, eastern Washington. I live further west. You guys have a pretty healthy amount of moose there. I've never come across one. I couldn't imagine one coming through the woods. It must sound pretty big all by itself.
Yeah, I think since they've started recording it, which I don't know the year, but once they started recording it, I think it's up to about 14,000 people in Maine that have been killed by moose by running into them on roads.
Jeez.
Yeah, they're prevalent for sure.
Yeah, that's not something you want to hit with your car.
No, Jeff, they are extremely large animals.
We are getting close to the end of the show. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our Monster X listeners?
No, except I'm glad you gave me the chance to tell the story. I've been dying to tell somebody that would understand, not think I was just nuts. So I just really appreciate the chance. And if you guys are ever over on the East Coast, Maine would be the place to check out for sure.
Oh, right on.
Give me a call. Well, and like I said, I got it's an interesting encounter, and I got no explanation for some of what you described for sure. But I appreciate you joining us today to share your encounter.
Hey, my pleasure.
Okay, Jeff. Thanks, buddy.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
You too. So I don't know. I mean, that's some of that stuff is trippy to me. I always wonder about, and I should have asked Jeff that, is some people that I think are interested in the paranormal stuff. I'm a Christian, so there's some stuff to that, and I know you are. There's some stuff that I think about attachment. That when you are messing with some of that other paranormal stuff, that's maybe some of that stuff follows you. I don't know, but it's weird, just a weird. There's the green face doesn't doesn't put me off too much. I could see that being a natural phenomenon for sure.
Easily, easily for me personally, it could be a natural phenomenon. Could have took a nosedive into mud. The possibilities are endless. And I think, and this goes both ways. This is twofold. Jeff being into the paranormal, when he's out in the woods, things are going to seem more paranormal. As like if you're into Bigfoot and you go to the woods, you can try, but in the back of your head, Bigfoot's, things are going to click Bigfoot for you, right? So it's just, I think it's just, I wasn't there to experience what he experienced. I do believe he had a possible Bigfoot encounter, him and his buddy, and it sounds like there's a history there. But most of the stuff that he was talking about, doesn't scream paranormal to me. Like I said, the drumming noise, the women's voice, that animals make noises like that. I think Sasquatch is capable, based on some of the recordings that we've got, are capable of making similar noises, especially the drumming noise. So it doesn't blow my mind. But it's an interesting encounter, and an interesting thing you pointed out was the fact that he, being a paranormal investigator, being out there, he was afraid of what was there rather than, in his usual day job or hobby.
Yeah, and that's interesting that because one of the trippy things is, when you run into someone who's been in the woods all the time and hunts bear or that kind of thing, that when they have a Bigfoot encounter, how it trips them out because, they've been out there their whole life, and now all of a sudden, I've been out here my whole life with this thing. So it is a different kind of perspective. So,
yeah, interesting encounter.
Well, well, folks, that's about all the time we have for this episode of Monster X Radio. As I mentioned earlier, check out our new Monster X website if you're inclined. It's www.monsterxradio.com. We're just getting started with it, so we'd love to see you over there. Thanks to my co-host Shane and to our guest today, Jeff Beaudoin. I appreciate you joining us today, Jeff. And for our Monster X listeners, have a happy Easter. This show will be playing then, and we will catch you a week from Easter with a brand new show.
Thank you for joining Monster X Radio.
Napa know-how.
A Napa guy knows more isn't always better, unless we're talking about full-size vans. These beasts do more than get you from A to B. They have so much space a man can live in it. With shag carpeting, waterbed, and a sweet lava lamp, these mobile abodes have all the comforts of home. With quality parts and plenty of Napa know-how, you can keep the original tiny house running longer, stronger. That's Napa know-how.
Napa know-how.